Here's some statistics for you. It's been almost 2 years, pretty much to the day, since we reviewed the MG ZS EV. And in that time, it's gone on to be, well, somewhat of a success. You see, year-on-year sales for the MG brand in Europe have increased by 50%. They're Europe's fastest growing car brand. And here's another stat for you. Over a third of those sales have been for their electric models. Now, if you take out the likes of EV-only brands such as Tesla and Polestar, no one else can touch that. But as we know, time and tide wait for no man. So of course, here we are 2 years later with a revised ZS EV. Have they addressed all the little criticisms that we had of the car 2 years ago? And what have they done to keep your interest alive? Well, they've started by putting the price up. Welcome to the new MG ZS EV, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, of course, before we get on to this week's road test review of the new MG ZS EV, it is time for our usual housekeeping rules. If you don't mind, if you'd be so kind, could you please like the videos, subscribe to the AutoEV channel and press the little bell button down below to receive notification of when our next video goes live. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for your continued support, and if you're not, please consider becoming one, because it's by doing so we're able to remain independent and bring you the great content that we do. So, the MG ZS EV. Well, 2 years ago, as I say, when the car first came to market, it was sort of the EV to have back then, and it was easy to see why. It offered a sort of no-nonsense approach to sort of like practical family electric motoring. It didn't really do anything particularly wonderful, but it offered good value for money, a reasonable amount of space, and an ease of use about it. But it wasn't without its faults. It had a clunky infotainment system, the range wasn't brilliant, and there were some areas of sort of like the dynamics that were not so great. So what have they done? What have they done to address those things? Because as we know, 2 years in the EV market, a lot can change. Have they done enough? Well, let's stick it through another AutoEV road test, this time a more comprehensive one, and find out if it's worthwhile upgrading from the last one. Well, of course, the biggest change is the styling of the car, because the front is completely new. Whereas the last car was effectively the same front as the piston engine variant, the petrol engine ones they offered with either 1 litre or 1.5 litre engines, just with a sort of grille that had an awkward looking charging flap in the middle. This time what they've done is they've given it a new front end. So there's no grille now, it's this kind of mottled, kind of this sort of indented design that's across. The MG badge now doesn't move, and that creaky old charging flap that came up and above has been replaced with a more conventional one at the front. There's standard LED headlamps across the range as well. There's some usual sort of like cooling that's down at the bottom there, and a little bit of chrome flashes. Is anybody else spotting a little bit of Aston Martin DBX in that grille shape, or is that just me? As I say, it's still hardly going to set your pulse racing, but at least it looks a little bit more distinctive from its petrol engine brethren. Now, inside profile, pretty much nothing has actually changed. It's got some new design of wheels, which are 17-inch and they're standard across the range. Some nice thick profile tyres, big profiles, cushiony tyres that help with the ride quality, but we'll go on to that a little bit later. Otherwise, as I say, you're pretty much looking at the same car from the side. Cameras here for the little 360-degree parking cameras that you have. Now, this is a top-of-the-range car, which comes with these kind of anodised aluminium roof rails. You don't get those on the lead-in car, but other than that, this is what you get. Same really at the back, actually. Nothing really changes. There's some LED tail lights, the big octagon badge that doubles up as the boot release, and of course you've got your parking sensors across the back as well, and there's some new chrome bits down there, but otherwise there's really nothing else to tell from the rear that this is the newer model. Inoffensive, neat, if a little nondescript. Now, the overall dimensions of the car haven't changed, which means the boot size is still the same at 448 litres. And of course, you've got a 60-40 split rear seat that will take the total capacity up to 1,166. Now, I was trying this out earlier with the suitcases and I thought, oh, they don't fit. But of course, I forgot. It has actually got a variable height boot floor in the car. So this is it at its highest setting, where you'd be able to get certainly 2 of our larger style suitcases in side by side, but then we wouldn't have space for the carry-ons. However, by lowering it, you can, because all you do is lift that up, drop that down. It gives you a lot more space, so you will now actually get two of those in. I carry on down the side there, and you can pretty much get another one in just. So yeah, it still retains its practicality. And of course underneath that boot floor you've still got cable storage as well, so the cables are kept underneath there, but there's nothing up at the front because that's where the motor is. So boot space has stayed the same, rear seat space has stayed the same, which is to say, again, perfectly adequate. Seat set up for myself, I'm 5'7", 5'8", and I have got plenty of room behind myself. There's good foot room, I can get my feet underneath the front seats. I've got good knee room. Headroom's a little bit tighter, I have to say, and as I say, if you were kind of encroaching on the kind of 6 foot area, that's going to just be very, very close. You certainly couldn't wear a hat in here. There's a good, well, relatively flat, near as damn it, floor across as well. You get two USB ports there, an A and a C. There's some sort of like vents in there. There's some door bins down there, mat pockets on the back for a bit of storage. And then you've got the kind of fold down armrest in the centre that you fold up. There's a couple of cup holders there too. So yeah, it's good. I mean, the Isofix points, they're a little bit tricky to get to because they're kind of tucked under the sort of like the seat backs, and this kind of faux carbon leather thing, it's quite nice. I mean, I suppose from a practical point of view it'll wipe clean quite easily, but yeah, it's okay back here, certainly for a small family. If you're looking at it from the point of view of having children back here, then it's more than adequate, I would suggest. As I say, just be aware, taller passengers, especially with this car with a big glass roof in it, they're going to struggle a little bit, but otherwise same as before. So much like the exterior, the interior has had some small changes, which add up to be, well, reasonably good again. Gone is the clunky old infotainment screen that was laggier than a 1990s internet connection. It's been replaced by this new 10.1 inch landscape kind of tablet style that just protrudes slightly out from the dashboard. Now it is better, there is no doubt about it, it certainly is better. It's not quite as laggy as before. If it still falls short, way short of some of the class best, unfortunately. But it is well equipped, and as I say, it is quite easy to use, and you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard across the range. But you also get, on the high trim level, you get Amazon Music streaming, Amazon Prime Music streaming, which you just sign into your Amazon account and you can stream across the music from there. The top trim level also gets a wireless charging pad down there, and thank the Lord they fit climate control now. So there's some physical buttons down here, some shortcut buttons that you can get to down here. So you've got, you know, climate control, fan speed, fan on and off, and then obviously you've got your heated screens or maximum defrost there, and a volume button as well. But as I say, it is a lot better to use than the last one was, there is no doubt about it, if still not quite, as I say, up to class best. The other thing that the car has is, this is all integrated through the MG's new iSmart connectivity, and again there's various levels of that depending obviously on trim level, but everything you find is in there. The safety systems, the MG Pilot, you know, emergency lane keep assist, and that's, you know, in there. Traffic jam assist, that's in there. Front collision assist, that's there, nice and easy to use. As I say, there's your kind of the climate control system, which is all nice to have. But as I say, it's a really big thing for me, that, because I say the last car just had normal aircon, which I must admit is a bit going out of the arc. What else has changed? Okay, so you also get this new digital instrumentation cluster, very similar to the one that comes on the larger HS, the MG HS, the plug-in hybrid model, where you've got nice clear digital instruments on either side rather than the dials from previous car. So you get speed readout there, you've got the power there, and then all the centre stack there is for the information that you might need, and your trip computer And it's a few other little bits and pieces that you can change in there as well. Different graphics that you can have depending obviously on what you want. Tire pressure monitoring system, settings, and then as I say, just whether or not you want to know the information of the car and where the battery's going for. The wheel's the same. It's that nice kind of, as I say, it reminds me of sort of like a slightly kind of older sort of like Audi A3 wheel, which I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from. It's got it's got the kind of sort of leather wrap, perforated leather. It's a nice size to hold. It's relatively round. The buttons, as I say, you push them, they're not touch sensitive, they're actually click. That's quite good. Same with the heating and ventilation sort of like controls at the side, the nice kind of turbine fan ones. You get 2 sensor vents there. We've got USB connectivity down in here, a USB-C and USB-A. There's a 12-volt socket there. You've got the same rotary dial gear selector, and the 3 buttons across here for either the drive mode, KERS, which is quite cool, I always think, to adjust your brake regen, and then just one last one for the battery to give you the quick battery readout there. And behind that, electronic park brake and auto hold button. 2 cup holders in the centre there, which are quite nice, and obviously you can cover them. And then obviously you've got some storage. You've got a reasonably deep bin in there. You've got good sized door bins at the side, and then a good glove box there. Dashboard's covered with this kind of faux carbon material as well, and a kind of covered kind of grab handle for the passenger. So all good then, all good. Yes and no. You see, 2 of the biggest gripes that I had with the last car, they haven't touched at all, and that is the driving position, because the steering column only adjusts for it doesn't adjust for reach, only adjusts for rake, and the seat doesn't adjust for tilt, it's only height, so you kind of struggle to get the exact driving position that you want. And with the price of the car going up, I kind of wanted a little bit more adjustment on the seat. As it is, 2, as I say, the biggest problems I had with the car are still here. But the improvements that they have made are worthwhile, so it's not all bad news. This car, as I say, has got the big glass panoramic sunroof in it, which floods the cabin in with light. It's really nice. It's probably one of the biggest I've ever seen, in fairness. It does open and the blind goes all the way back. In fact, it almost touches the rear hatch. So that's pretty good. But as I say, yeah, there was more room for improvement in my book. So, what's the point, I hear you say? A lot of fuss made about a new front end design and a larger infotainment screen. Why are we bothering to watch this review? Well, this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. You see, because MG have increased the battery size in the ZS by quite a margin. The old car had a battery size of just over 44 kilowatt hours, giving a range of 163 miles on the WLTP cycle. This new one, however, has a battery size of just over 72 kilowatt hours, giving a range of up to 270 miles on the same WLTP cycle. Now that's a vast improvement. This is the long range car, as MG call it, and this is the car you can buy at the moment. In 2022, a standard battery car is coming out with a battery that's even bigger than the last one. It's going to have a battery size of just over 50 kilowatt hours, giving a range of up to 198 miles, which puts that car on a par with the rivals such as the Vauxhall Mokka E and of course Peugeot's E2008. Now, as I say, the other big change is they've moved the charging flat. You don't have that creaky grille now. You've got a standard kind of flap here with CCS charging. And the car will take charging speeds of just under 90 kilowatts, meaning you can go from 10 to 80% in 40 minutes from one of those 100 kilowatt chargers. If it's a more likely 50 kilowatt charger, then the same results can be achieved in just over an hour. From your home wall box at 7 kilowatts, then that's going to be done in just over 10 hours to go from flat to full. The top of the range car also has an 11 kilowatt 3-phase onboard charger. So if you're using one of those 11 kilowatt wall boxes from your home, you've got 3-phase electricity, then of course that time will come down by a little bit. So the new ZS EV has the same power as the old ZS EV, and that's a front mounted motor, so it's front drive only, and that delivers 156 PS. On the long range car, although for some reason in the MG press blurb it's saying that the standard battery, so the shorter range car, is going to have 177 PS but deliver the same performance. Not quite quite sure how that's going to work, or whether it's a typo. Anyway, irrespective of which, 0 to 60's dispatched in about 8.5 seconds, so yeah, it's okay. It's not going to set your hair on fire, but I suppose it's not really designed to. And if you do try and be a bit enthusiastic with it, it's kind of where the car, well, will metaphorically fall apart in terms of dynamics. I don't actually mean it will fall apart. It washes wide at the front, it obviously understeers because it's a front drive, tall, kind of crossover style SUV. I say it's not designed to be for an enthusiast, it's designed just to be basic family transport. And it does that relatively well. It's comfortable. The taller profile tyres that I mentioned earlier mean that the ride quality's okay. Yeah, I've driven cars a lot worse than this. I've driven cars a lot better than this. It's okay. It's somewhere in the middle. The brakes are okay. Quite like the brakes. They're nice. You can adjust the regeneration, as you can with lots of things, with this KERS button down here, which I always think is quite cool actually. Yeah. Formula 1 fans with your KERS button there, kinetic energy recovery system, and that goes through 3 levels. So on level 1 it's kind of coasting, it's almost off. Level 2's a mid-level of brake regen. Level 3's it's not quite one pedal driving. That would be nice to have that slightly more aggressive setting. It's not quite there, but it's okay. Steering's alright, a bit vague, but turns the wheels. It weights up at speed. It's not too, you can't, as soon as you turn the wheel at speed, it does move the car. It doesn't feel light. There's no vagueness, on the dead ahead too much. Yeah, I mean, it's a real run-of-the-mill standard family car, which is probably exactly what people are after. And if you're coming from the previous generation ZS, again, there's nothing here to frighten you. There's nothing here to get you terribly excited. And I suppose maybe for a man my age, I'm starting to think that, MG doesn't stand for what it used to before. That's fine, I suppose. Time changes and things change. But I'd quite like to have seen something a little bit sportier, if I'm honest with you, because I know we're talking about a car, and a lot of other channels talk about this, is the value of the MG. And we did right at the start. We did way back 2 years ago. But it's not so much value these days. The price has crept up. And as I say, we'll get onto price in a second. And the problem is, as it's crept up, it's bringing it within, shouting distance of some really quite talented cars out there of a similar ilk. The Kia e-Niro, even, smaller or bigger battery, and although it's about to be replaced, it's still a really competitive car and a really nice car to drive. The Skoda Enyaq. You'd be surprised about the price difference between this car that I'm driving, the Trophy Connect, and the base Enyaq 60. You'd be surprised how close they are. And I think when you put them into something like a finance deal, that gap is even smaller in terms of monthly payments, and that car drives really, really well. But look, I'm getting away from what the MG is about, and as I say, it is just that. It's just a basic family runaround with electric powertrain, and it does the job really, really well. It's a bit like a cheese and onion sandwich. It's not the best sandwich that you're ever going to go out and buy, but it's okay. I mean, it'll stop you feeling hungry. I mean, that's what it's about. Visibility is good. You get nice, reasonable kind of door mirrors. As I say, the driving position's okay. I like more adjustment in the wheel. I'd like to be able to tilt the seat a bit more. That's maybe just me. Other people maybe find it all right. Over the shoulder visibility is probably its worst aspect, because that C-pillar has got a tiny, tiny little window in it. You think it's big from the outside, but from the inside it's not. That's quite a big blind spot there. Maybe some sort of blind spot monitoring in the mirror or something would be quite nice to have. Anyway, what else can I say about it? That's it, really. As I say, it's alright. It's quite pleasant. It's okay. Oh, driving modes, nearly forgot. Yeah, you've got different driving modes, obviously, down here. Again, it's one of the 3 buttons. Normal, Sport, and eco, and obviously eco, you know what that's all about. It just, and everything does feel dead when you press eco. I mean, you're in eco and you press the throttle, and you press it and you press it and you press it and you press it, and you go, oh, okay, it's starting to move now. I mean, it really does dial you right back. Normal mode, which I've been driving in mostly, is perfectly fine. It's absolutely great. Pop it into sport, and I will say the throttle response really sharpens up. And I would think on a wet surface, if you were exiting a junction or something, if you were to give it a real prodigious stab at the throttle, you'd probably find it squirreling away at its front tyres. Yeah, and that's not really, as I say, what it's like, because that's when things start to feel a bit out of shape. Bring it back to normal. Refinement's okay, it's alright. It's not as nice as something like the Kia e-Niro. It's a bit better than the Kona, the Hyundai Kona. It's somewhere between those two. There's a little bit of wind noise, a tiny little bit of road noise, but nothing that's going to scare you off. I did a reasonably big trip in one of the last cars on the motorway and found it perfectly acceptable. Gentleman there not using his indicators until the very last minute. Thank you, sir. Didn't know where you were going. So yeah, look, what more can I say about it? As I say, if you're coming from the previous generation car, you're going to find it absolutely fine. But if you're coming from anything else, depending obviously what it is, you might find areas a bit disappointing for the money. But we'll get on to that in a bit. Now, the car's going to come in 3 trim levels. You're going to start with the SE model at £30,000, and then you're going to move to the Trophy, which is going to be at £33,500, and then the Trophy Connect, which this car is, at £34,000. That has a little bit more equipment on it. Now, none of those prices include the current UK's plug-in car grant, and there's a reason for that. You see, the day that I'm filming this, the very day that I'm filming this, the UK government, from out of nowhere seemingly, decided to change the UK's plug-in car grant. So excuse the iPad here, because I'll just roughly explain the new rules that are applying. And remember, this is correct at time of filming, which is December 2021. Now, whereas before, the UK plug-in car grant was £2,500 and would be applied to any car, any EV, zero-emission car, up to £35,000, that has now dropped to £1,500, and the eligibility threshold has dropped from £35,000 to £32,000, meaning the only ZS that now is applicable for the plug-in car grant is the base model SE. Now, that is a big important thing to take into account, because that puts this car in its 2 higher trim levels, albeit with good range and the bigger battery, in the direct firing line of some really serious competition, cars such as the Kia e-Niro, the outgoing e-Niro, and also Skoda's Enyaq 60. So it's not going to have an easy time of it, not like before. Thank you, the UK government, thanks for that. So, as I say, competition for the car is now going to be cars such as the Vauxhall Mokka-e, Peugeot E2008, and because of this revised pricing schedule, it brings it into firing line of things such as the Kia e-Niro, the outgoing one, because remember there's going to be a new one in 2022, but still the other one is still available, and it's still a very competitive car. But the big worry is that it also brings it in line with the Skoda Enyaq 60, which is quite a bit bigger and drives an awful lot better. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new revised MG ZS EV. We like the fact you now have a choice of battery sizes, and with that we like their improved ranges, the improved infotainment and specification, and it still does represent good value in lower trim level or lower battery guys. We don't like the styling is still a bit nondescript. The chassis dynamics are far from class best. There's still a limited adjustment on the driving position. And the top trim level is getting expensive compared with more established and better competition. there is still an awful lot to recommend and like about the MG ZS EV. It still offers that kind of no-frills approach to electric motoring that the brand has, well, probably become its USP now, if I'm honest with you. And I think if you were coming from the old car, you'd certainly appreciate the improvements they've made to this one. Certainly the bigger battery, the longer range, the better infotainment system all start to make sense. I mean, other channels have pretty much said exactly the same, so what's making us a little bit different and almost a little bit hesitant? Well, it's this. You see, that revised price, and with the change to the plug-in car grant, now brings the top 2 trim levels of the ZS into line with some very, very serious and very talented, and dare I say much better, competition. If you're approaching the ZS from now as a new buyer, if you will, our advice would be this: stick to the lower trim level or wait for the standard battery car, because then the price is going to be much more attractive, and that value proposition that the other one was so renowned for is still there. Until then, this one's got a bit of a fight on its hands, I'm afraid. Thank you as always for watching AutoEV. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel and press the little bell button down below to get notified when our next video goes live. If you're already a subscriber, thank you very, very much. If you're not, please consider doing so, because every little bit helps. Remember as well, we're also on social media such as Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And if you haven't been there, now is the time to head over to autoev.co.uk, where you'll see our first review of the old ZS EV and a few more that we've done since then. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.